Happy Monday. Hey, Michael.
What's going on? Long time no see, Mr. Lane.
Yeah, we actually got to see each other last week.
It's a rare occurrence that Jamie and I are in the same room at the same time. When was the last time that happened?
It's been a really long time. It was maybe in Barcelona for
It doesn't feel like that.
Gale?
Did I
No.
see you at VR Nation, maybe?
No.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
maybe we ran into each
Last
other
year,
for a second,
briefly.
maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we went to the Hunter Hotel Conference in Atlanta last week, and Jamie was just right in his element with all these folks. He knew everybody. Everybody's yelling down the hall, Jamie. So
Michael, I've got a story for you from the conference because I don't know about you. I've sat on a lot of conference planning committee boards where we like come up with who we want to speak and what are the hot topics and like if we're going to pay to get a speaker or not. And if we're going to pay to get a speaker, who's going to be worth it? I never considered that we could like just get someone to come and perform for the audience at the conference instead of getting some sort of motivational speaker. And on the last night of the Hunter conference, and shout out to Lee and Teague who planned this conference, they had Ludacris come and play, and Hilton put on a 4-hour party, open bar, top shelf liquor, beer. They had chicken and waffles for everyone. And Ludacris played for a good hour and a half. It was incredible. So much fun. I'd never seen him perform, and it was awesome. And you missed it because you went home.
I did. Welcome to Atlanta. It looked like a blast, but to stay out that late to see a 50-year-old rapper
he's 48.
Was it? Okay. That's good. Well, yeah, I think, and just to touch on one of the topics at the conference, it ended up actually being a slide that you had done, Jamie, but we've seen this supply and demand mismatch between hotels and short-term rentals. Short-term rental supply has boomed, if you will.
Yep.
Hotel supply has been virtually flat for a few years and is projected to be basically flat for the next decade.
Yeah. Will's putting it up now for us, and it's actually demand. So, and Adam Sachs, who presented, has for years, and I've known Adam for like 20 years. He's had this great slide that shows the long run trend of GDP and hotel demand. And as an economist, like I used to forecast hotel demand as my job. Like essentially, if GDP was growing 2%, hotel demand was going to grow 2%. If GDP was going to fall by 2%, hotel demand was going to fall by 2%. And like the correlation was unmistakable. Like hotel demand was the easiest thing to forecast in the entire world. I did great at my job. And since COVID, GDP has grown by roughly 2% a year, and we've seen hotel demand is flat and is still essentially below 2019 levels. So we've seen a 14.6% increase in GDP, and hotel room nights during that same time have fallen by 1.3%. So the correlation has broken.
But it's broken because you've got the entrance of short-term rentals, and that delta between total lodging and traditional lodging is virtually completely covered, and the majority of the reason why is short-term rentals, right?
Right. And that was the argument I made and sort of created that slide initially for Adam to sort of push back about his point that the industry was broken and that there was something fundamentally wrong with hotel or with travel demand, is that because travel has evolved beyond just staying in hotels. And I had a slide up on stage this week that overall short-term rental revenue in the US is now 30% the size of hotels. So short-term rentals now generated $60 billion in revenue in 2015, and hotels generated $207 billion in revenue. So essentially his slide can't ignore the rise of short-term rentals, and he includes cruises in there too. It's an important sort of alternative way to and go on a vacation. And when you include all that, and essentially the slide still holds, and overall travel is still keeping up with GDP. And it's still slightly down, I think. And the big factor there is, I think, the lack of inbound international. Like if we had inbound international to the US back to pre-pandemic trend, and we would,
or even just the Canadians,
or even just the Canadians, we'd be rocking and rolling in terms of overall travel demand.
What I found funny, I haven't gone to many pure hotel conferences like this.
Yep.
And the boogeyman that short-term rentals are within the walls of hotels is so funny, because it's the inverse within short-term rental conferences. It's like, we can't get anything right because we're not standardized. We're not, all operations under one roof. And then the flip side, travelers are preferring short-term rentals because they have better service offerings like kitchens and like multiple bedrooms. At the end of the day, I think what we'll see in the next few years is a lot more of the blending. Marriott's done a good job of it, but we've seen a lot of licensing deals, and we'll get into that in just a second, where hotel flags are able to pull in brands without actually buying or franchising them. And I think especially in the age of AI, which we'll also get to, there's this blending of everything under one roof. And I think that's what the hotels see as a big opportunity, and could potentially be a big threat to the traditional OTAs. So it's a lot to unpack in one sentence, Jamie, but thoughts?
I agree. And hotels and hotel brands, and they want to be a one-stop shop for all their travelers. And maybe we'll pull forward, and one of the topics we're going to talk about, since we're talking about hotels now, Skift CEO and founder Rafat Ali put together this op-ed where he talked about travel's most celebrated number is its most meaningless. And he sort of gets into how, and all the hotel companies are talking about their loyalty numbers. So Marriott has 271 million Bonvoy members. Hilton crossed 243 million. I'm not sure what Hilton calls their members, but their loyalty members. Booking Holdings is growing direct channel bookings from the low 50s to mid 60s. And like they've made the argument over the years that if we get all these loyalty members, then all of a sudden these loyalty members start booking directly with us. We keep them in the loyalty system, and it gives us some sort of moat that others can't now compete with us because they have become a Bonvoy member, and now they're only going to book Marriott's from now on. And Rafat calls this out, and I agree. And it's essentially because they've actually, before I say the statement, do you know what Goodhart's Law is, Michael?
I don't.
Have you ever heard it?
Never.
So Goodhart's Law, and it's like this really British economist, states that when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. So the fact that all these hotel companies have targeted growing their loyalty members, and it's essentially become a meaningless statistic. So like now that every time I go into a Marriott, I have to, like, if I am a Bonvoy member, I get free Wi-Fi. So they get everyone signed up to be a Bonvoy member that goes into a Marriott so that they can get that free Wi-Fi.
It's kind of like supply with Airbnb. All we care about is supply growth, supply growth, supply growth. But at the end of the day, how many of those are actually getting booked of the net new? it's still consolidated in the standard bell curve.
Yeah.
Well, on the loyalty aspect, I don't know about you, but if I have a loyalty or rewards program with said hotel chain, it does drive me to book directly with them, but it doesn't drive any loyalty. Like I like Hyatt's, I like Marriott's, I like Hilton's. I have no loyalty to any of them in particular. For me, it's price and location matching with quality. And if I have loyalty with them, an account with them, then I will book direct. So in that regard, it's working, but it doesn't, the term loyalty doesn't actually apply. You the same way?
Yeah, I think so. Like it's, and there's things that cause loyalty, and there's things that like are just an incentive, and generally like a slightly lower price is just an incentive. It doesn't cause me to, it's not me being loyal. So I think in general, what these loyalty programs do is just bring forward different incentives for guests. And ultimately there isn't, unless, what drives loyalty for me in hotels is if I get enough points to then be able to book travel from my family to go on vacation and get, I'm willing to pay slightly, maybe more, and because work is paying for it. And if I build up enough points on the same program, then I can then use it. Oh yeah.
Well, it obviously works in many regards because brands keep signing up with the major flags, whether it's directly affiliated, franchised, or if it's some sort of licensing deal like we saw with Trailborn or Sonder or Y Hotel. And Hilton just announced their own new affiliate marketing brand. What do they call it? Select by Hilton. And the first chain to join is Yotel. So they're not buying or franchising any of these properties. These are seemingly purely licensing deals. And the reason you do that is because you do, as a 23 chain hotel, that Yotel is, they get access to all of Hilton Honors members, perks, whatever. So I like it. I do think this, and this was one of my predictions last year, the year before, that more and more licensing deals will continue to happen. And it only makes sense because, everyone's trying to figure out how to get more eyeballs. We saw the demand in hotels is virtually flat. So anything that gives you an edge and gives you a couple more percentage points of occupancy is totally worth it. Jamie, if you had a hotel chain, an independent hotel chain, would you sign up on a licensing deal?
So I want to ask you a different question first. So we just talked about Goodhart's Law. So is this happening just because Wall Street cares about listings and as part of each chain as a key metric? And essentially, and this was the other key point of the Hunter Hotel Conference, was that hotel supply is growing at maybe a quarter or a half of what it has over time. So now, and we're looking at, out in the future, 1% growth or 0.8% growth instead of 1.7, 1.8%, which is the long run average. So now hotel chains have a really hard time growing supply because there's not a lot of net new construction. So you got to deal, you either are having people convert into your brand, or you're driving the majority of growth outside the US, which they're all doing, or you're able to bring new brands in, and they're not willing to pay for these brands, maybe what they've done in the past, spent 100 million, 200 million, and to go out and buy Yotel. But you're like, you know what? If you guys want to become part of this new collection, and give us a certain percent of revenue going forward for the ability to be bookable through Hilton, and we're happy to do it. And now that makes Hilton much more like an OTA than a brand, because it doesn't necessarily have Hilton going in and running brand consistency. It doesn't, and it's still a company entirely run by Yotel. So does that over time just start to dilute the Hilton brand if you've got all these random brands that sit under the Hilton umbrella?
Yes, and so if I was a flagged regular Hilton property and this Select by Hilton came up, and now I'm in the same program, but I don't have my PIPs, I don't have franchise fees, I don't have to use their software, I can use better, more innovative software, then yeah, it totally changes their traditional model. So they have to be really careful with that. The flip side of it, if you're Yotel, it's a win-win. It's, you're going to be paying your channel fees to any of the OTAs anyway. Why not just marry your cart to, a Hilton or a Hyatt or a Marriott? There's not a whole lot of downside. Now, I haven't read these contracts. You mentioned giving up a % of revenue. I don't think they're giving up any percentages of revenue. I think they're probably giving up percentages of reservations driven by the program. If they're also able to get a % or a few percentage points of revenue, then that's basically a franchise anyway. So it's not significantly different. Is that what you're going for?
Yeah, I assume part of the and like when you looked at the Sonder deal, like and a large % of revenue was going, of all bookings were then going to Marriott. And I suspect these deals aren't too different if you're going to be part of the Hilton family. I don't know anything though.
Well, if anyone has a copy of this contract, we'd love to review it and dive into it. But we saw this trend starting, and now I feel like it's only going to snowball here for the next few years. There's also only so many independent hotel chains today as it is. So, ultimately their whole goal, my guess, is to build big enough to get bought by one of these folks anyway. And there's likely a right of first refusal. So, you are kind of picking a horse to bet on, and we've seen it collapse in epic fashion with Sonder and Marriott, but I suspect there will be more success stories than failure stories.
I agree. So moving on to the first topic that at least I wanted to talk to you about today, we're now 18 minutes in, and there was a ton of sort of news volatility over the past week centered around airport lines, TSA, checkpoints. I follow the Atlanta airport checkout times pretty closely. And they have stopped now giving an actual time because they have gotten so long. Rumor is that the lines this morning were out the door. They already wrapped them around the entire baggage claim. So the fact that they're going outside probably means 5 or 6 hour wait times. And then we heard also today that ICE Immigration and Customs Enforcement was going to start helping with TSA starting on Monday today. And we actually got an announcement from our mayor here in Atlanta, Andre Dickens, that ICE would be at the Atlanta airport and helping with crowd control. They are not trained for airport screenings, so they'll be helping and sort of moving people around, helping at the exits in essentially different ways that they can help. But with all the negative news around ICE, and you think about, and maybe if you're going to fly to the U.S., and then maybe the first people you might be seeing as you come into the U.S. is ICE, and maybe you're worried there, like this isn't necessarily a good look for U.S. travel. And with the long lines, and I hear a lot of people sometimes say that, oh, if airlines, people aren't booking airlines, maybe they're booking more drive-to destinations, and that this could be good for short-term rentals. Like, I don't believe that at all. I think if people are worried about travel, they're worried about where they're going to get to, that this is a net negative for the industry. And that with what's going on with oil prices, like this is a lot of negative headlines around travel heading into the heaviest bookings time of the year as we get into summer travel.
Well, the good news is if the bunch of bozos in DC can just pass something, then this problem gets solved very quickly. This isn't a permanent problem. It is completely self-inflicted. The bad news is that if you're traveling the next week or two, that's likely not to change. I'm going with my family of 4 to Virginia in about a month. So if this is still going on, then that's going to be waiting 4 or 5 hours just to get through security changes the calculus on do I drive or do I fly pretty significantly.
I would drive. Anything less, if this is still holding out, like anything less than 12 hours, like just get in the car.
Yeah, it's like 10 or 11, which add in 2 kids, now it's 12 to 14. So it'd be a long day. But I'm confident or hopeful or optimistic, I don't know which one, that in 3 or 4 weeks, this won't be an issue anymore. So yeah, and oil prices have skyrocketed. So it looks like they're coming down this morning from what you've seen, Jamie. But it could be a choppy quarter for the airlines. Do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah. So oil prices pre Iran conflict were sitting about $65 a barrel for Brent crude. They've moved now, and as of yesterday, they were over $100 a barrel. This morning, they dropped down to about 90, as it looked like the market was poised for a big drop. And President Trump announced that he was going to stop bombing domestic oil production in Iran, and we saw a big jump in the stock market. We saw a big decrease in oil prices because of it. We'll see how long that holds. And hopefully this is the beginning of the end, and that Trump declares victory and pulls out, and we can start to recover from this in terms of travel in the Middle East, in terms of market volatility. The other metric I'm watching very closely as it relates to short-term rental industry is interest rates. All this volatility has been really bad for 10-year treasuries. It's been really bad for 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So in the days prior to the conflict, we were sitting at 6% interest rates. There was a clear path to sub 6, and now we're up to 6.5 again. So anyone looking to maybe buy a home this spring is maybe on pause for that again. So this has far-reaching implications into the economy, and ultimately higher gas prices, which higher oil prices directly translate to, are a tax on the U.S. consumer. And we're looking at hundreds of billions of dollars now if this $100 a barrel holds. And the economists I follow expect that if this is prolonged and into May and June, we could see oil prices spike up to over $125 a barrel. And if that happens, it could move us into a recession. So that is not everyone's baseline. And most people think by middle of April, going into May, that we're going to see a resolution to this, hopefully even sooner. But if this holds and we start to see further constraints on oil supply, because right now we've essentially brought offline 10% of the world's oil. And oil is one of those things like electricity, like you create what you use. It's not like we have huge amount of storage facilities for, and there are some strategic reserves around the world, but there's only so much sort of oil that's out there for us to be able to leverage. And once that we go through that, we then become in this sort of system where oil prices have to go up to constrain demand to keep the economy moving. And we'll definitely, I think, if we're sitting in May, June, and we haven't seen the Strait of Hormuz fully reopen, we haven't seen oil flowing, then we could be in a world of hurt.
Well, I'll be optimistic again and say it's an election year, and in all likelihood, things will resolve, and hopefully we will see it all resolve. If you're traveling in the next week or two, good luck. But again, hopefully not too distant, things can return back to a pseudo normal. It feels like TSA, those poor people always get shut down. The politicians should not be able to take a single penny home if anyone in the government's not taking a penny. All right, we've made it this far without really getting into AI. And our last fun topic of the day is what OTA investors got wrong about the ChatGPT checkout walkback. So originally, everybody was kind of thinking checkouts would happen, transactions would happen in ChatGPT. Early on, ChatGPT had a Shopify connection, and that looked like a prelude to what could happen in hospitality and travel. They've since walked it back and I guess remained focused on top of funnel and with their ad strategy, layering that in. Google actually, correct me if I'm wrong, went the other way and said they were going to look at putting in checkout, agentic checkout into Gemini. So historically, Google's avoided it, and now they might be entering it in the AI platform. OpenAI, where everybody thought was going to happen, it's not happening. Where does this leave us with travel? I think all of the public statements from Booking Holdings, Airbnb, they're saying it's nominal traffic, but nominal traffic, from what I've seen firsthand, is still single-digit percentage points on referrals and conversions, and that is it's not nominal, it's a real impact. So Jamie, is it nominal? Is it real? Is it going to be real soon?
I'm first going to call out Paul Manzi's comment, a 2026 podcast episode without an AI mention. Blasphemy. I agree. We had to wait
do it without AI.
25 minutes before we mentioned AI. Like, what are we thinking? And in general, what I see in the story really calls out that, and bookings are not going to happen, but discovery is still moving from OTAs to LLMs. And if that's where the discovery happens, they're still going to be able to control and where that booking happens by pointing them to specific areas. And that's where I believe that the markets have got it right. And ads, there's going to be incentives for the LLMs to point people to the OTAs to complete that booking. Even think the mention about Google and bringing people into the direct checkouts. Like, Google has been in the travel space for years, decades. If they haven't done it now, and with Google Hotels, Google Vacation Homes, and they monetize this extensively with which ones show up on the list and to book, whether it's the direct site, the hotel site, the OTA. And if I was a betting guy, I would say that they're going to move more in terms of their existing booking functionality and not necessarily trying to upend that. So I think I generally disagree with the article. Just because discovery is happening, that doesn't mean the OTAs are going to be cut out on the LLMs.
Well, discovery is happening, but conversion is also 2% better. So conversion referrals from ChatGPT are at 7%, whereas Google sits around 5%. So intent is a little bit higher. and the trust that the LLM knows you and understands you a little bit better probably correlates or translates to better conversions. I do think this could be, and I've mentioned this time and time again, a challenge for the OTAs of being disintermediated, but time will tell. And this is such a moving target right now, from GPT going to do checkouts to not doing checkouts is a big pivot, is a big redirect. But the fact that, we're having to rebuild AEO entirely compared to the existing SEO is a huge shift. And if you're not looking at it right now or already, then there's a good chance you can be left behind for a duration of time until you catch up. So it is a structural shift in especially search, but in my estimation, conversion as well.
And when I hear conversion is up, that means that ChatGPT is going to be able to charge more on a per click basis. So I guess for now we can agree to disagree, and we'll definitely times will tell. So Michael, what do you got going on this week?
Let's see. The last couple of weeks have just been a bit strange with spring break and then working the back half of that, going up to the conferences and whatnot. So this week is zero inbox, knock it back down, and try and be focused and productive. Nothing wild. Thank goodness I'm not getting on a plane. What about you?
Similar. Yeah, I had the Hunter conference. I did an Atlanta host meetup last week too, which was so much fun. Getting to, it's about 60, 70 people there, and got to really dive into what was going on in the Atlanta scene, which is always fun. And then my wife was out of town this weekend. That was maybe a funny story for another day, but they're supposed to use our cabin up in the North Georgia mountains for a ladies' weekend. And I went into my PMS uplisting and put a pending booking. And then it actually got booked because pending bookings disappear after 2 days. So I was in trouble. But fortunately, it was a $2,000 booking that I told her that she could spend $2,000 on whatever she needed to make that weekend work. So they found a nice other cabin to rent out for the weekend.
Well, there's always a silver lining.
Always a silver lining.
I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of what I'm sure you heard, but sweet. Yeah. Well, next week, it's been a while since the GMH crew has been at full strength. So we'll see if we can pull it all together next week. But thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.